At my parents' anniversary, as every kid was hugging their grandparents, my daughter went and hugged them and they gave her a beautiful gift. That's when my sister lost it and threw trash on her and shouted, "How dare you give a gift to her and not to my daughter?" My parents rushed to her and said, "Oh, sorry, dear, we will fix this right now, don't you worry one bit." Then my mother snatched the gift from my daughter and gave it to my niece. When my daughter started crying, she slapped her and said, "Go back to your mother." While my mother said, "Please leave at once, don't say anything." I nodded and took my daughter and left. But what I did next made everyone leave the venue when I canceled the anniversary payment, and that's when I got 32 missed calls. My name is Felicia, and I'm a 34-year-old single mother to the most amazing 8-year-old daughter, Molly. What happened at my parents' 40th wedding anniversary last weekend has completely changed the dynamics of my family forever, and I'm still processing it all. Let me start from the beginning so you understand the full picture. My parents, Robert and Linda, have always played favorites when it comes to their children. I have one sister, Rochelle, who is 31 and married to a guy named Mark. They have a 7-year-old daughter named Kiara. Rochelle has always been the golden child, she could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. She married young, had her daughter at what my parents considered the right time, and basically lived the life they always envisioned for both of us. Me? Well, I took a different path. I got divorced 3 years ago after my ex-husband turned out to be a serial cheater. He moved across the country for work right after our divorce and sees Molly maybe twice a year, so I've been raising her essentially on my own. I work as a marketing manager for a mid-sized company and make decent money, enough to support us comfortably and even help my parents financially when they need it. Which, by the way, happens more often than I'd like to admit. The favoritism has always been subtle but present. Rochelle's achievements get celebrated with family dinners and Facebook posts, while mine get a "that's nice, dear" and a quick change of subject. Molly's drawings get polite smiles, while Kiara's identical artwork gets framed and hung on the refrigerator. I've learned to live with it over the years, mostly for Molly's sake. She adores her grandparents, and despite their clear preference for Kiara, they've never been outright cruel to her. Until last weekend. The anniversary party was supposed to be a big celebration. My parents had booked the grand ballroom at the Marriott downtown, a fancy venue with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough space for their 150 guests. They'd been planning this for months, talking about how it would be the party of the decade. Rochelle was in charge of decorations and I was handling the catering arrangements and had co-signed for the venue costs. Yes, you read that right. I was financially responsible for a $5,000 venue fee. My parents had asked me to help out since I make good money and don't have a husband to support. I agreed because I wanted them to be happy, even though it was a significant expense for me. The morning of the party, I spent hours getting Molly ready. She wore a beautiful powder blue dress that she'd picked out herself, complete with sparkly shoes and a matching headband. She was so excited to see her grandparents and cousins, chattering nonstop about the party during our drive to the venue. "Mommy, do you think Grandma and Grandpa will like my card?" she asked, clutching the handmade anniversary card she'd spent hours creating. It had glitter, stickers, and a drawing of our whole family holding hands. "They're going to love it, sweetheart," I assured her, though part of me wondered if they'd give it the same attention they'd give one from Kiara. We arrived at the venue around 2 p.m. The party was scheduled to start at 3, but I wanted to make sure everything was set up properly. Molly ran ahead into the ballroom, her little shoes clicking on the marble floor. The space looked incredible. Rochelle had really outdone herself with the decorations. There were gold and white balloons everywhere, elegant floral centerpieces, and a large banner that read "Congratulations Robert and Linda, 40 years of love." My parents were already there, greeting early arrivals and looking absolutely radiant. Dad wore his best navy suit, and Mom was stunning in a silver dress that she'd been planning for months. When they saw Molly, their faces lit up, or at least, I thought they did. "Grandma! Grandpa!" Molly squealed, running toward them with her arms outstretched. "Oh, there's our little princess," Dad said, scooping her up into a hug. For a moment, I felt that warm feeling of family love that I'd been craving. Maybe today would be different. Maybe they'd treat both girls equally for once. As more family members arrived, the ballroom filled with laughter and conversation. Molly played with her cousin Kiara and a few other kids, seemingly having the time of her life. Rochelle looked stressed as she ran around making sure everything was perfect, while Mark stood by the bar looking bored. Typical Mark, really. Around 4 p.m., my parents called for everyone's attention. They stood at the front of the room, holding hands and beaming at their guests. "We want to thank everyone for being here today to celebrate this milestone with us," Dad began. 40 years ago, Linda and I promised to love each other through everything life threw at us. We've had our ups and downs, but we've always had the support of our wonderful family and friends. Mom took over, her voice slightly emotional. We're especially grateful for our daughters, Rochelle and Felicia, and our beautiful granddaughters, Kiara and Molly. They bring us so much joy every single day. The crowd awed appropriately, and I felt a surge of hope. Maybe things really were changing. After the speech, there was the traditional anniversary toast, followed by dinner. Molly sat next to me, carefully eating her chicken and vegetables while chatting with the elderly woman sitting across from us. She has always been such a polite, well-mannered kid, and I was proud of how she was handling herself in such a formal setting. It was around 6 p.m. when things started to go downhill. The kids had finished eating and were getting restless, so they started wandering around the ballroom. I watched as Molly approached my parents, who were sitting at the head table taking a break from socializing. "Grandma, Grandpa, I made this for you," Molly said sweetly, holding out her handmade card. "Oh, how lovely, dear," Mom said, taking the card and barely glancing at it before setting it aside. But then something unexpected happened. Dad reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. "Actually, Molly, we have something for you too," he said, handing her the gift. Molly's eyes went wide with excitement. "Really? For me?" "Of course, sweetheart. Every granddaughter deserves something special," Mom said, and for a moment, I thought maybe they were finally treating her equally. Molly carefully unwrapped the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a small heart charm. It was actually quite beautiful, and probably cost more than anything they'd ever given her before. "Oh wow, it's so pretty. Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa," Molly exclaimed, throwing her arms around both of them. I was standing about 10 feet away, watching this scene unfold with a smile on my face. Finally, I thought. Finally, they're showing Molly the same love they show Kiara. But my relief was short-lived. "What the hell is this?" Rochelle's voice cut through the ballroom like a knife. She was marching toward us, her face red with fury, while Kiara trailed behind her looking confused. "How dare you give a gift to her and not to my daughter," Rochelle shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at Molly, who was still admiring her new bracelet. The entire ballroom fell silent. Every conversation stopped, every fork was lowered, every eye turned toward our family drama unfolding at the head table. "Rochelle, please calm down," I started to say, but she wasn't having it. "No, I will not calm down. This is ridiculous. My daughter is older than hers, she should get gifts first." Rochelle's voice was getting shriller by the second. That's when things got truly ugly. Rochelle grabbed a plate of leftover food from a nearby table and before anyone could stop her, she hurled it at Molly. Pieces of cake, mashed potatoes, and gravy splattered across my daughter's beautiful blue dress. Molly stood there in shock, her new bracelet still clutched in her small hands, food dripping down her dress. The entire ballroom gasped in unison. "Rochelle!" I screamed, rushing toward Molly. "What is wrong with you?" But instead of apologizing, instead of being horrified by what she'd done, Rochelle kept yelling. "How dare you give a gift to her and not to my daughter? She doesn't deserve it. Kiara should have gotten it first. She's older." I expected my parents to be appalled by Rochelle's behavior. I expected them to comfort Molly, to tell Rochelle she was out of line, to act like the grandparents they were supposed to be. Instead, they rushed to Rochelle's side. "Oh, sorry, dear, we will fix this right now," Mom said to Rochelle, her voice soothing and apologetic. "Don't you worry one bit." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Molly was standing there covered in food, and they were apologizing to Rochelle? "What are you doing?" I demanded, but Mom ignored me completely. She walked straight to Molly, who was now crying softly, and without a word, snatched the bracelet from her hands. "Grandma?" Molly whispered, confusion and hurt written all over her face. Mom didn't even look at her. She took the bracelet and walked over to Kiara, placing it in her hands. "Here you go, sweetheart. This is for you," Mom said to Kiara with a warm smile. Molly's crying intensified. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes filled with tears and asked, "Mommy, why did Grandma take my present away?" Before I could answer, before I could even process what was happening, Mom did something that I will never, ever forgive. She slapped Molly across the face. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. Molly stumbled backward from the force of it, her hand flying to her cheek. "Go back to your mother," Mom hissed. "You shouldn't have accepted that gift in the first place." The entire room was dead silent except for Molly's sobbing. I looked around at all these people, Family members, family friends, people who had known Molly since she was born, and not one of them said a word. Not one of them stepped forward to defend an 8-year-old child who had just been assaulted by her own grandmother. Dad stepped forward then, and for a split second, I thought he might finally do the right thing. Instead, he looked at me with cold eyes and said, "Please leave at once. Don't say anything." I was in complete shock. This couldn't be happening. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect their granddaughter. Instead, they had just humiliated her, physically hurt her, and were now kicking us out of the party that I had paid for. "You want us to leave?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Mom said firmly. "We don't want to cause any more of a scene." I looked down at Molly, who was clinging to my leg and crying into my dress. Her beautiful blue outfit was ruined, her face was red from the slap, and she was looking up at me for answers I didn't have. I nodded silently, scooped Molly up into my arms, and walked toward the exit. With each step, I could feel the eyes of 150 people watching us leave. No one said goodbye. No one asked if Molly was okay. No one stood up for us. As we reached the door, I heard Rochelle's voice behind us, sweet as honey now that she'd gotten her way. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. Kiara looks so pretty with her new bracelet." I carried Molly all the way to my car, where she finally broke down completely. "Mommy, what did I do wrong?" she sobbed. "Why did Grandma hit me? Why did she take my present away?" I held her in the parking lot of that fancy hotel, her tears soaking into my dress, and I realized that something fundamental had broken inside me. The unconditional love I'd had for my parents, the desire to keep the family together for Molly's sake, the willingness to overlook their favoritism, it was all gone. "You didn't do anything wrong, baby," I whispered into her hair. "You did absolutely nothing wrong." As I was buckling Molly into her car seat, my phone rang. It was Marcus, the event coordinator at the Marriott. "Ms. Johnson? This is Marcus from the hotel. I wanted to check with you about the final arrangements since you're the co-signer on the venue contract. Given what just happened, are you still authorizing us to complete the evening service?" And that's when it hit me. I was financially responsible for this venue. I had co-signed for the rental where my daughter had just been humiliated and assaulted. I was essentially paying for the celebration of people who had just shown they didn't give a damn about my child. "Actually, Marcus, I need to speak with your manager immediately," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm withdrawing my authorization for continued service. As the co-signer, I'm requesting you end the event now." "Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but if we shut down the event now, you'll still be responsible for the full venue fee, and there may be additional costs for the disruption." "I understand completely. Shut it down. Now." There was a pause. "Ma'am, are you absolutely sure? This will mean we'll have to ask all the guests to leave immediately, and you'll still be liable for the full costs." "I'm absolutely sure." I hung up and started driving home. Molly had cried herself to sleep in her car seat, her face still flushed from the slap. As we drove through downtown, I kept thinking about what had just happened. How could my own parents treat my daughter that way? How could they choose Rochelle's tantrum over Molly's well-being? We were about 20 minutes into our drive home when my phone started ringing. The first call was from Dad. Then Mom. Then Rochelle. Then Mark. Then various relatives whose numbers I recognized. I let them all go to voicemail. By the time we got home an hour later, I had 32 missed calls. I carried sleeping Molly inside and gently cleaned the food off her dress and face before putting her to bed. She woke up briefly as I was tucking her in. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" she asked sleepily. "No, sweetheart. We're not in trouble. Get some sleep, okay?" "Okay. I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, Molly. More than anything in the world." Once she was asleep, I finally listened to my voicemails. They started off confused and quickly escalated to furious. Dad's first message: "Felicia, what's going on? The hotel is saying you canceled payment? Call me back immediately." Mom's message: "Felicia Marie Johnson, you call me right now. Do you have any idea what you've done? There are 150 people here and the hotel is making them leave. This is our anniversary party." Rochelle's message was predictably dramatic: "You are such a selfish bitch. How could you ruin Mom and Dad's anniversary? Everyone is leaving and it's all your fault. They'll never forgive you for this." The messages continued in this vein for the next 31 calls. By the final message, Dad's voice was strained and tired. "Felicia, please. Just call us back. We can fix this. We can work this out. Please. But here's the thing, I didn't want to work it out. For the first time in my life, I was done trying to fix things with my family. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed when they put their hands on my daughter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the events over and over in my mind. The look of pure joy on Molly's face when she received that bracelet. The sound of Richelle's voice as she screamed at an 8-year-old child. The collective gasp of 150 people when food went flying across the room. But most of all, I kept hearing the sharp crack of my mother's hand against Molly's face. I got up around 2 a.m. and went to check on Molly. She was sleeping fitfully, tossing and turning in her bed. Even in sleep, she looked troubled. I sat in the chair next to her bed and just watched her for a while, this perfect little person who had done nothing wrong except exist in a family that didn't value her. As I sat there in the dark, I started thinking about all the other times my parents had shown their true colors. Like Molly's 6th birthday party, when they spent the entire time talking about Kiara's upcoming dance recital instead of focusing on Molly. Or the Christmas when Molly had carefully saved her allowance to buy them each a small gift, only to watch them gush over the expensive presents Kiara had picked out, with Richelle's credit card, of course. There was the time Molly had won first place in her school's art contest, and when she excitedly called to tell them, Mom's response was, "That's nice, dear. Did you know Kiara made the honor roll?" Or the countless family dinners where Molly would try to share something important from her day, only to be interrupted by my parents asking Richelle about Kiara's activities. I had always told myself that Molly didn't notice the favoritism, that she was too young to understand. But sitting there in her bedroom at 2 a.m., watching her restless sleep, I realized I had been lying to myself. Of course she noticed. How could she not? She was 8 years old, not blind. The next few hours crawled by. I made coffee at 5 a.m. and sat at my kitchen table, staring out the window as the sun came up. My phone had finally stopped buzzing with calls and texts, but I could see dozens of notifications waiting for me. I ignored them all. Around 7 a.m., Molly padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. "Morning, Mommy," she said quietly, climbing into her usual chair. "Morning, sweetheart. How did you sleep?" She shrugged. "Okay, I guess. I had a weird dream about the party." My heart clenched. "Do you want to talk about it?" Molly was quiet for a long moment, stirring her cereal around in her bowl. "In my dream, Grandma gave me a present, but then she took it away and gave it to a stranger. And when I asked why, she said I wasn't good enough to have nice things." I had to grip my coffee mug to keep my hands from shaking. "Molly, you know that's not true, right? You are absolutely good enough to have nice things. You deserve all the love and kindness in the world. Then why did Grandma take my bracelet away?" It was the question I had been dreading, and I still didn't have a good answer. How do you explain to a child that the adults who are supposed to love them unconditionally are capable of such cruelty? "Sometimes adults make very bad choices," I said carefully. "What Grandma did was wrong, and it had nothing to do with you or whether you're good enough. It was about her own problems." Molly nodded solemnly, but I could see she was still processing everything. After breakfast, I called my office and told them I was taking a personal day. Molly needed me, and honestly, I wasn't in any state to focus on work. We spent the morning doing quiet activities, coloring, reading books, watching cartoons on the couch. Around lunchtime, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw my neighbor, Mrs. Tucker, holding a casserole dish. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by," she said when I opened the door. "I heard about what happened at the party. My sister was there. She's friends with your Aunt Margaret. I just wanted to bring you and Molly some lunch and see how you're both doing." I had always liked Mrs. Tucker, but we'd never been particularly close. The fact that she had gone out of her way to check on us meant more than I could express. "That's so thoughtful of you," I said, accepting the warm dish. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" We sat at my kitchen table while Molly played in the living room, and Mrs. Tucker told me what she had heard through the family grapevine. "My sister said she couldn't believe what she witnessed," Mrs. Tucker said, shaking her head. "She said that poor little girl was just being polite, and the way your family treated her was absolutely shameful. She was actually one of the first people to leave after the hotel staff made the announcement." "Really? She left because of what happened to Molly?" "Oh yes. She said she couldn't stay and celebrate after watching a child get treated like that. She told me at least a dozen other people left for the same reason, even before the hotel shut things down." This was news to me. In all the angry voicemails from my family, no one had mentioned that people were already leaving because they were disgusted by what they had witnessed. My sister also said that your mother tried to get people to stay by telling them it was all a misunderstanding, Mrs. Tucker continued. But apparently, several people had already seen enough. Learning that other people had been appalled by what happened to Molly was oddly comforting. I had started to wonder if I was overreacting, if maybe the situation wasn't as bad as I remembered. But hearing that multiple witnesses had been disturbed enough to leave the party validated my feelings. After Mrs. Tucker left, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have done. I called my cousin Rachel back. She had left one of the messages telling me I was being too sensitive, and I wanted to hear exactly what version of events she had been told. "Oh, Felicia, thank God you called," Rachel said immediately. "This whole thing has gotten so blown out of proportion." "Blown out of proportion?" "Rachel, my daughter was slapped in the face." "Well, yes, but you know how stressed your mom gets at big events. She didn't mean anything by it." "She didn't mean anything by physically assaulting my child?" "It wasn't assault, Felicia. It was just a little correction. Molly was getting too excited about the gift, and your mom was trying to teach her some manners." I felt my blood pressure rising. "Rachel, let me ask you something. If someone slapped your 7-year-old son across the face at a family party, would you call that a little correction?" There was a long pause. "That's different. Tommy would never put himself in that situation." "What situation?" "Saying thank you for a gift?" "You know what I mean, Felicia." Molly was showing off, and she needed to be put in her place. I hung up on her. I literally couldn't listen to another word without saying something I might regret. The fact that my own cousin could look at what happened and see it as Molly needing to be put in her place told me everything I needed to know about where she stood. But Rachel's call did accomplish one thing: it eliminated any lingering doubt I had about whether I was doing the right thing. If this was how my family saw the situation, if they truly believed that Molly deserved what happened to her, then they weren't the kind of people I wanted in our lives. That afternoon, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I went through my phone and deleted every contact associated with my parents' side of the family. Mom, Dad, Rochelle, Mark, and all the cousins, aunts, and uncles who had made it clear they sided with them. I blocked their numbers, unfriended them on social media, and essentially cut them all out of our lives in one fell swoop. The only person I kept contact with was Mike, who had been the one voice of reason in the entire mess. I sent him a text letting him know what I had decided and thanking him for his support. His response came quickly: "Good for you. Molly deserves better than people who would treat her that way. You both deserve better." That evening, Molly and I had a long talk about what had happened and what it meant for our family going forward. I tried to explain it in terms she could understand, that sometimes people we love make choices that hurt us, and when that happens, we have to protect ourselves by staying away from them. "So we won't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" Molly asked. "Not unless they realize they were wrong and apologize to you," I said. "And not just say sorry to make us come back, but really understand that what they did hurt you." Molly was quiet for a moment. "Do you think they will?" I wanted to lie, to give her hope that her grandparents would come to their senses and make things right. But I had learned the hard way that giving Molly false hope about my family only led to more disappointment. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope they will, but I can't promise that they will." She nodded, looking much older than her 8 years. "That's okay, Mommy. I have you, and that's all I really need." Those words broke my heart and put it back together again all at once. My brave, resilient little girl was already learning one of life's hardest lessons, that sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But she was also learning that she had a mother who would always, always have her back. The rest of that week was a blur of ignored phone calls, deleted voicemails, and determined attempts to create normalcy for Molly. We went to the park, had playdates with her friends, and did all the regular activities that made up our life. Slowly, Molly started to seem more like herself again. The next morning, Molly woke up and asked if she could call Grandma and Grandpa to apologize. She thought she had done something wrong to make them angry. It broke my heart all over again. "Baby, you don't need to apologize to anyone," I told her as gently as I could. "Sometimes adults make bad choices, and what happened yesterday wasn't your fault." "But Grandma was so mad at me," Molly said, her eyes filling with tears again. "Grandma was wrong to be mad at you. You were being polite and kind, which is exactly what you should do. She was wrong to take your present away, and she was wrong to hit you." It was the first time I'd explicitly told Molly that what happened was wrong. I could see the confusion in her eyes. She was trying to process the fact that adults she trusted and loved had treated her badly. My phone kept ringing throughout the morning. Finally, around noon, I decided to answer one call just to get it over with. It was Mom. Felicia. Thank God you finally picked up. We need to talk right now. You have completely humiliated us. I humiliated you? I asked incredulously. Yes. Do you have any idea what you've done? Everyone had to leave the party early. The hotel staff was rude to us. Uncle Bill and Aunt Margaret were mortified. The whole family is talking about what a disaster it was. Mom, you slapped my daughter. There was a pause. She was being inappropriate. She was being inappropriate? She's 8 years old. She said thank you for a gift that you gave her. Felicia, you're overreacting. It was just a little tap to get her attention. A little tap? There are probably 150 witnesses who saw you slap my child across the face. You're being dramatic. Besides, she shouldn't have been so greedy about the gift. She should have known it was meant for Kiara. I felt that familiar surge of anger rising in my chest. Even now, even after everything that had happened, Mom was making excuses and blaming Molly. You know what, Mom? You're right about one thing. I did humiliate you. And I'm not sorry. Felicia Marie, no, I'm done. You want to know why I canceled the payment? Because I was paying for that party. $8,000 of my money was funding your anniversary celebration. And I'll be damned if I'm going to pay for a party where my daughter gets assaulted. Assaulted? Now you're just being ridiculous. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked both of my parents' numbers. Then I blocked Richelle's number and Mark's number. I was done. But the family drama was far from over. Over the next few days, I started getting calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in months. Apparently, word had spread quickly about the anniversary disaster, and everyone had an opinion. My cousin Rachel called to tell me I was being too sensitive to think about the family. My Uncle Tom called to say that while what happened was unfortunate, I should have handled it privately instead of embarrassing everyone. My grandmother, my dad's mother, called to tell me I was selfish and vindictive and should apologize immediately. The common theme in all these calls was that I was wrong for canceling the payment, but no one seemed to care about what had happened to Molly. It was like my daughter's feelings didn't matter at all. The only person who called to ask how Molly was doing was my cousin Mike, Richelle's younger brother who had moved to California a few years ago. He'd heard about what happened from other relatives and wanted to check on us. Felicia, I'm so sorry, he said. What they did to Molly was completely wrong. Are you guys okay? It was the first time anyone in my family had acknowledged that Molly was the victim in this situation, and I actually started crying on the phone. We're managing, I told him. Molly's confused and hurt, but she's resilient. She'll be okay. And you? How are you holding up? I'm angry, I admit it. I'm so angry I can barely think straight. But I'm also relieved. I've been making excuses for their behavior for years, and I'm done. Mike was quiet for a moment. You know, I stopped talking to them a couple years ago for similar reasons. Not as dramatic as what happened to Molly, but the favoritism and the way they treat people. It never changes. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah, well, they don't exactly advertise when family members cut contact. But Felicia, you did the right thing. Molly doesn't deserve to be treated like that, and neither do you. It meant more than I can express to hear someone validate our experience. For days, I'd been second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd overreacted, wondering if I should have just swallowed my pride and tried to smooth things over. Mike's call reminded me that I was protecting my daughter, which is exactly what a mother should do. A week after the anniversary disaster, I got a text from Richelle from a number I didn't recognize. Apparently, she'd gotten a new phone specifically to contact me since I'd blocked her other number. Felicia, you need to grow up and fix this. Mom and Dad are devastated. Do you really want to destroy the family over one little incident? I stared at that text for a long time. One little incident. That's how she saw it. My daughter being humiliated, having food thrown at her, getting slapped by her grandmother, and being kicked out of a family party, that was just one little incident to Richelle. I typed back, Richelle, if you ever refer to what happened to Molly as a little incident again, we're done forever. What you did was inexcusable, and what Mom and Dad did was even worse. Molly is 8 years old. She did nothing wrong, and she certainly didn't deserve to be treated like that. Her response came quickly, she was being a brat and you know it. She shouldn't have taken that gift. It was obviously meant for Kiara. How was it obviously meant for Kiara when Dad specifically handed it to Molly and said it was for her? Because Kiara is the favorite grandchild, obviously. Everyone knows that. And she's older than Molly anyway. I screenshot that message and saved it. Not because I planned to use it against her, but because I wanted to remember this moment, the moment when Rochelle actually admitted out loud what I'd known for years. I didn't respond to her after that. What was the point? 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from my parents. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered by the postal service. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was 3 pages long and written in Mom's careful handwriting. It started with them explaining how disappointed they were in my behavior and how my actions had caused irreparable damage to the family. They went on to detail how embarrassed they were when the hotel staff made everyone leave, how they had to deal with angry relatives for days afterward, and how Uncle Bill had told everyone at his office about the family drama. They also mentioned that they had to pay additional fees to the hotel because of my rash decision, and that I should reimburse them for those costs as well. Not once in those 3 pages did they apologize for what they did to Molly. Not once did they acknowledge that they had done anything wrong. Instead, they demanded that I apologize to them and pay them back for the damages caused by my impulsive decision to cancel the payment. The letter ended with, "We are willing to forgive you if you admit you were wrong and make this right. Molly is welcome to visit us again once you teach her proper manners and respect for her elders. We love you both, but we cannot tolerate this kind of disrespectful behavior." I read that letter 3 times, and each time I got angrier. They wanted me to teach Molly proper manners? Molly, who had politely said thank you for a gift. Molly, who had been nothing but kind and respectful until she was attacked for no reason. I wrote my own letter in response. It was much shorter than theirs. Dear Mom and Dad, I will not be apologizing for protecting my daughter. What you did to Molly was wrong, and the fact that you can't see that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. Molly will not be visiting you again until you acknowledge what you did and sincerely apologize to her, not to me, to her. An 8-year-old child deserves to hear that she didn't do anything wrong and that the adults who hurt her are sorry. I will not be paying you back for anything additional. You want to know what damages look like? My daughter still flinches when adults raise their voices. She still asks me if she did something wrong to make Grandma mad. Those are damages, and they're worth a hell of a lot more than $5,000. If you want a relationship with us, you know what you need to do. The ball is in your court. Felicia, I never sent that letter. I wrote it, sealed it, put a stamp on it, and then threw it away. Because ultimately, I realized I didn't want a relationship with them anymore. I didn't want Molly to be exposed to people who could treat her so cruelly. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life waiting for them to change when they'd made it clear they never would. It's been 3 months since the anniversary party, and life has been surprisingly peaceful. Molly has stopped asking about her grandparents. She's back to her usual cheerful self, though I notice she's a bit more cautious around new adults. We've started therapy together to help her process what happened, and it's been incredibly helpful for both of us. I've also started dating again. His name is Perry, and he's a single father with a 10-year-old son named Jake. When I told him about what happened with my family, his immediate response was to ask if Molly was okay. Not whether I'd overreacted, not whether I should try to fix things, but whether my daughter was okay. That told me everything I needed to know about his character. Molly adores Jake, and Perry is wonderful with her. Last weekend, Jake gave Molly a friendship bracelet he'd made at summer camp, and Perry made a big deal about how pretty it was and how thoughtful Jake was being. Watching Molly's face light up at that positive attention reminded me what healthy family dynamics look like. I still get the occasional flying monkey from my family, distant relatives who call to tell me I'm holding a grudge or that I should be the bigger person. I've started responding to these calls with a simple statement: if you think it's okay for an adult to slap a child across the face for saying thank you, then we have nothing to discuss. Most of them hang up pretty quickly after that. Rochelle tried to friend me on Facebook last month using a fake account. I recognized her in the profile picture and immediately blocked the account. I have no interest in keeping tabs on their lives or letting them keep tabs on ours. The hardest part has been dealing with Molly's questions about why we don't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore. I've tried to explain it in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes people make choices that hurt other people, and when that happens, we have to protect ourselves by staying away from them. She seems to understand, though I know she misses having grandparents. Perry's parents, however, have basically adopted us. They live about an hour away, and we visit them every other weekend. They treat Molly like their own granddaughter, and she started calling them Grandma Nancy and Grandpa Joe. Watching her relationship with them has shown me what I was missing with my own parents, the unconditional love and support that grandparents should provide. Last week, Molly came home from school with a drawing she'd made in art class. It was a picture of our family, me, her, Perry, Jake, Grandma Nancy, and Grandpa Joe, all holding hands under a rainbow. When I asked her about it, she said, "This is my real family, Mommy. The people who are nice to me." Out of the mouths of babes, right? People often ask me if I regret what I did that day. If I regret canceling the payment, causing the party to end early, and effectively blowing up my relationship with my parents and sister. The answer is always the same: absolutely not. I regret that it took me so long to stand up for my daughter. I regret that I allowed them to treat her as less than for 8 years. I regret that I was so desperate for their approval that I ignored the signs of their true character. But I don't regret protecting Molly. I don't regret showing her that her mother will always have her back, no matter what. I don't regret teaching her that she doesn't have to accept mistreatment from anyone, even family members. The $5,000 I spent on that venue, plus whatever additional fees I'll probably end up paying, was the best money I ever spent. It bought Molly freedom from toxic people who would have continued to damage her self-esteem and self-worth. It bought us both a chance at a healthier, happier life. And honestly, the look on my parents' faces when the hotel staff started shutting down their precious party? Priceless. Some people might call what I did petty or vindictive. I call it justice. They humiliated my child in front of 150 people, and I made sure they experienced the same humiliation. The only difference is that Molly didn't deserve what happened to her, while they absolutely deserved what happened to them. I'm sharing this story not because I want sympathy or validation, though both are always nice, but because I want other parents to know that it's okay to cut toxic family members out of your life, even if they're your own parents. It's okay to prioritize your children's well-being over family harmony. It's okay to burn bridges when the people on the other side are hurting your kids. Molly is thriving now. She's confident, happy, and surrounded by people who genuinely love and value her. She deserves nothing less, and neither do any of our children. Sometimes the best gift you can give your child is showing them that their safety and happiness matter more than anything else in the world, including family relationships that have turned toxic. And sometimes, the most powerful response to cruelty is to simply walk away and build something better. Those 32 missed calls? I never returned a single one. And I never will.